AEW talent reportedly questioned Tony Khan's booking after William Regal's departure from the company this week. Speaking of Dynamite, we also have the ratings with the lowest key demographic unopposed on a Wednesday night ever for the program. CM Punk, we have the latest on his AEW status as he is ready to depart the company. We also have an update on the Elite's reception this past week inside the arena at Dynamite. Also have an update on the ongoing Matt Hardy storyline with Ethan Page on AEW Dark. Title matches have been announced for Ring of Honor's Final Battle pay-per-view, and Tony Khan gives his blessing for a match at Wrestle Kingdom. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And let's start off talking about talent possibly questioning the booking of AEW President, CEO, and Head of Creative Tony Khan. Because a lot, that is a quote, a lot of AEW talent is said to be questioning Tony Khan's booking after a recent story with William Regal. It has been hotly speculated this week that William Regal, of course, is returning to WWE. We did the latest news video earlier today with the WWE News discussing Regal's possible return to the company he was let go from earlier this year. Now, Regal was attacked during AEW Dynamite this week by MJF with brass knuckles. Regal had previously loaned him at Full Gear. William Regal was stretchered out, abruptly ending any hopes of a long-running alliance between MJF and the former European champion. In the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer reported that a, quote, lot of talent in AEW have questioned this booking decision made by Tony Khan. It understandably seems odd that Regal was put front and center of a story involving the AEW World Championship title change, only for him to be written off of TV a couple of weeks later. Meltzer wrote, quote, but all that is fine, but I can't understand putting so much heel steam to the point of being the point man and stealing the title on Regal, when it was known by key people by this point he was going to be gone in a few weeks. I mean, story or not, the guy was leaving. A lot of talent have questioned that in the same way now that everyone knows he's leaving. It was recently revealed that William Regal's AEW contract was actually up this December. Previously, it was believed that Regal was tied in for 3 years, which initially made a WWE return seem unlikely. Regal's next moves have by no means been confirmed at this point, but it has been described as, quote, all signs pointing to WWE as per PW Insider. Now, there is some also news on William Regal's booking and MJF's next feud when it comes to moving forward for the AEW World Championship. While seeing Regal stretch it out drew emotions out of fans and got heat on the new champion, according to the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, there were different ideas debated about what to do with Regal. While all ideas ultimately ended with MJF holding the gold, there was one favoured by several key people within the company. Some favoured Regal to turn with MJF on Moxley and then be turned back on, which is what happened, seemingly setting up a future feud between MJF and Bryan Danielson on the way out. However, other ideas didn't feature Regal as heavily as he has been seen on television, although even people with that belief felt he had to be written out of the company in some fashion. The end result has always been to get Danielson as the next big contender for MJF, and that is likely what has been achieved with what we've seen on television this week. AEW has tapped into Danielson's legitimate friendship with Regal as he hit the ring immediately after MJF punched him, and he even travelled with Regal in the ambulance. He will now likely seek revenge, while it remains to be seen if Regal is mentioned again on AEW television or when he will make his return to WWE. Right now, it is unknown what type of role he would be taking up for his old employers, whether that be back on television, backstage, or most likely in a combination of both as he had before. So, what we've seen and what we kind of have discussed here with AEW in the most recent videos discussing William Regal's exit from the company, his return to WWE, is this felt like an illogical situation. And we were trying to put logic to an illogical situation, which is par for the course of pro wrestling, but hasn't been really par for the course for AEW in the 3 years that it's been around. Like any pro wrestling company, it's had its hiccups when it comes to booking. But this was an instance whereby Wednesday's angle, I mentioned at the time, It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. It felt weird. As I said before, I don't understand the logic of, okay, Regal, you're going to turn on Moxley and you're going to assist MJF to win the title at Full Gear. Okay. Oh, and by the way, the following episode of Dynamite, you're going to have Moxley say to Regal, go away, never show your face again. And that's going to, I guess, end the Regal-Moxley feud. And it didn't really, because Regal showed his face next week. And then during that week, MJF turns on Regal. So we meant to feel sympathy for Regal because he was duped, but he's still a bad guy. And MJF, don't forget about MJF when we're talking about this. They are so desperate, and I think this comes from MJF himself, but MJF is so desperate to be booed. And he's desperate to be a heel. He's desperate for the crowd not to like him and for him to get that heel heat he was getting in his first couple of years in AEW. But if you listen to the audience, every single time since he returned All Out earlier this year, he's getting cheered. When he attacked Regal on Wednesday night, he got cheered. And why? Because if you follow the story, you want to cheer for MJF. What was MJF's big gripe with William Regal? It was that he was a guy who didn't believe in him in the past. He was a guy that turned him down. He was a guy that when William Regal looked at him in the past, he said, "You've got everything, but you're too young. If you become a big star or you're a big athlete, get in touch. Show me your stuff." So when MJF did that to Regal, you cheered because you went, good. That guy should have believed in you. That guy proved he's a snake. He turned on his group. He turned on his faction. And now you turned on him, proving that this isn't the master strategist or strategy guy. No, you are. And everyone likes that. Everyone likes to see a comeback story. Everyone likes to see a guy who says, I told you so, screw you, you didn't believe in me. And guess what? I'm the world champion now, and I stabbed that guy in the back. People like that. And MJF can do everything he wants by shouting at the crowd, oh, I hate being here, and they're booing me, and whatever. But they don't want to. And I think the talent's right to question Tony Khan's booking at this point because... And it's not just Wednesday. It's not just the angle on Wednesday. And I think that's the situation, as I mentioned, whereby, look, they put Regal front and center, but they knew he was leaving. That's quite illogical. I'm not sure why they would do that. But it's Dynamite in general. And we'll talk about this in a second when it comes to the ratings. But every single week, you know what the show's going to be. It's going to be a series of matches that have got no real story there. 2 or 3 of them are going to be title matches, even though... the novelty of having a title match on that show's worn off at this point. You're going to have that interspersed with backstage vignettes that are going to be 30 seconds that set up a match next week or on Rampage. And that's about it. Oh, and by the way, you might have an interview during the show. Either on the ramp or in the ring or backstage, and that'll be it. There's nothing different. The show's become formulaic. And the show's become... there's not a lot of story there. There's not a lot of... something I can really get my teeth into. You don't have multiple segments across the show that tower story. And heading into Full Gear, I wasn't even really sure what some of the stories were until 2 weeks before the show. Again, it feels like it needs a shake-up. It needs something different. Scrap the formula and go back to something different because they've just got to the point now, and WWE have had this for years, whereby you know what the show's going to be, every single segment. None of the segments are going to relate. Again, matches are going to happen for no reason, and 2 or 3 of them are going to be title matches. You can't just put a title match on the show and be like, oh, it's going to draw. Because what's the point after a couple of weeks? People will go, what's the title match? The title's not going to change hands. And that person, do they really deserve to have it? And what does it do for the pay-per-view? And plus all of the backstage drama going on as well. Again, all of it is a problem with AEW at the moment. And as I said, it reflects in the ratings this week for Dynamite. AEW Dynamite did not do well in the ratings this week at all. This week's edition of Dynamite on TBS continued to remain under 900,000 overall viewership for the 3rd week in a row. But the alarming aspect of the viewership figures released by various outlets is that AEW's flagship show garnered the lowest 18 to 49 key demographic rating since March of 2021. The show, headlined by MJF's first promo segment as AEW World Champion, and round 3 of the Elite vs. Death Triangle's 7-match series was viewed by an average of 870,000 viewers, down from last week's 880,000 viewers. On a positive note, the show did see a slight year-over-year increase in overall viewership, as the December 1st, 2021 episode of the show was viewed by an average of 861,000 viewers. But in this coveted 18 to 49 demographic, which AEW Dynamite always does very well in and always has usually a younger audience, this week it only scored a 0.26 rating, which is significantly down from last week's 0.32 rating. According to WrestleNomics, the 0.26 rating represents 344,000 viewers, which is down from last week's 421,000 viewers in that demographic. The number is the show's lowest key demo rating since March 31st, 2021, which was one of the last instances of AEW going head-to-head against WWE NXT on Wednesdays nights. It should be noted, however, that these figures are only for Dynamite airing in its regular slots Wednesday nights on TBS and don't include the several times that the show was preempted due to other sporting events airing on the Warner Bros. Discovery Network. Now, AEW's flagship show was on a hot streak over the summer. Despite having all of the injuries, it was on a hot streak. It was doing okay, notching up over 1 million viewers for 5 weeks in succession for the first time in the show's history, from episodes airing from August 24 to September 21st. However, Dynamite has struggled to hit the 1 million mark since the October 5th episode, which was headlined by Chris Jericho and Samuel Guevara versus Bryan Danielson and Daniel Garcia in the main event. Now, it remains to be seen if AEW can bounce back in the ratings for next week's show, which will be headlined by the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royale, Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta versus Jake Hager and Daniel Garcia, and an interview with new AEW Women's World Champion Jamie Hayter. But as I've said, something is going wrong with AEW at this point, and it's eroding the audience because of it. The audience, particularly the younger part of that audience, the audience is getting older. And the reason is because younger viewers are tuning out. In addition, viewership is going down too. As I mentioned over the summer, despite the injuries, you were still getting over 1 million viewers. If you go back to last year, over the summer and into the fall, they were well over 1 million viewers every single week. And what we've seen is 100,000, 200,000, 250 disappear from the audience. And they were the younger viewers as well. That key demo, they've disappeared. Why? Several reasons. I just mentioned them. I think I'm going to do a full video on this, but you can really pinpoint it, I think. What you can look at is, again, the show's become formulaic. I know what Dynamite's really going to look like. You know what it's going to look like before you tune in. As I mentioned, you're going to have a series of matches. The matches are going to be good. Matches are always good on Dynamite. Is there going to be any story in them? Well, not a lot of them. There'll be random matches put together. A couple of them might be title matches. Not that that means anything, because you know they're going to retain. And there's no story for why the title's on the line. It's just they're going to defend the title. Okay. That's some of the matches. And in between them, you're going to have some pre-taped vignettes backstage that last 30 seconds. You're also going to have Excalibur run down AEW Rampage, the card, for about 30 seconds without taking a breath. In addition to that, you're probably going to have 2 or 3 post-match brawls. And that's your show. And there's not going to be a ton of story. Oh, and by the way, they're going to shoehorn in Ring of Honor because Tony Khan purchased it and he still hasn't figured out a TV deal. So we've got some Ring of Honor titles that we don't really know if we're meant to care about that much. And because of that, we've got 10,000 titles on the roster, which again, don't mean as much when they're defended. It's just become formulaic. And plus, in addition to all of that, the well-publicized backstage issues that are going on, the fallout of Brawlout, CM Punk, The Elite, Andrade, Sammy Guevara, Cody Rhodes' departure, it's all piled in and perception has changed. Perception has changed of AEW, and I said this earlier this year. It's no longer the plucky upstart company that we want to see do well against WWE. There's expectations now. We've seen what it can be. We've seen it when it's good. And it's not an injuries thing anymore. What it is a staleness thing. It's cold. And I don't know what they can do. My feeling is to get it back hot, they need to scrap this formula that Dynamite's become. It's become formulaic. And to be honest, they can talk about positive metrics, about pay-per-view buys being up and gate receipts being up. But look at other metrics. Viewership's down, key demos down, attendance is down. The product is cold. And it's now on Tony Khan to find that second win from somewhere. And where it is, I don't know. Is it MJF? For me, it was MJF as a babyface, not as MJF as a heel. And again, we've seen AEW when it's good, and at the moment, it's meh, to be honest. Ironically, it's mid at the moment. And Tony Khan has to fix that. And he can't fix that by doing what he's doing. If he's doing what he's doing at the moment, the ratings will continue to decline, or they'll just stay out how they are. They'll get a bit better as we head into the spring, because wrestling does better into the spring. But that's about it. It feels like AEW's found its ceiling at this point. And it's a shame, frankly. Well, the latest when it comes to CM Punk, speaking of those controversies, CM Punk. Clarity on CM Punk's contractual status with AEW still remains hazy, but a new report Friday suggested that at least one side is ready to move on from the relationship, and that side is CM Punk. In the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, veteran wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer reported that Punk is still under contract with AEW and he's still getting paid. However, Meltzer reports that while Punk is ready and willing to move on to his next project, AEW has not yet made a move on releasing him just yet. Punk, aka Phil Brooks, has been off AEW television since his participation in an alleged backstage brawl in early September, following the company's marquee All Out pay-per-view. The reported fight, which apparently saw Punk and Ace still get into an altercation with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks took place after Punk called them out as part of an expletive-filled tirade during the All Out media scrum. Of course, Punk was stripped of his AEW World Championship, as was the Elite of their Trios Championships. Both were suspended. Eventually, the Elite came back. They're now back. Punk's status is in limbo. He's still technically on the shelf with an injury anyway. He tore his triceps in the main event of All Out against Jon Moxley. He's had surgery. He's going to be out of action until most likely the summer of next year, even if he wanted to return to wrestling. And at this point, Punk's ready to leave. He wants to leave. It would appear that it's AEW who's a bit cautious on the matter. Why are they cautious? Because I think they realise there's a chance Punk could go back to WWE. And there are some big matches on the table there. And as I spoke about previously, the product's cold right now. And the product has had a lot of black eyes this year. Punk's been involved in some, but they've had black eyes this year. And another one would be Punk going back to WWE. They've just had a guy that was heavily involved in this world title scene, William Regal, leave the company to go back to WWE. What happens if CM Punk goes back to the place he hated and he would never go back? What perception does that give? Punk's more willing to go back to the place he hates over AEW. What does that do? We also have some news when it comes to CM Punk's status about the upcoming AEW video game Fight Forever. In case you've been living under a rock, there's currently a lot of uncertainty surrounding Punk's future. The former AEW World Champion hasn't appeared for the promotion since All Out. Now, there was a lot of controversy because Punk was removed from the cover of the Fight Forever video game. Before all of this, he was front and center. He was front and center on the promotional art. He was front and center on the cover art. And with him being suspended, with him being removed from the cover art, there was some confusion of, is he even going to be in the game at all? Sportskeeda is now reporting that AEW has confirmed that CM Punk has not been removed from the game. The report stated that AEW representatives confirmed they expect all characters revealed for the game so far to be in the final release. It was also reportedly noted by the representatives that if a character previously shown to be part of the game needs to be removed, AEW will announce the removal to fans. Therefore, if CM Punk is to be removed, they'll announce we're removing CM Punk from the game. Gameplay featuring CM Punk's character model was shared in September, courtesy of the Game Club. The footage was recorded at the Tokyo Game Show, which AEW Games attended. So it would appear, because Punk's still technically under contract, he's still part of the game. So if you're planning on buying Fight Forever, as of right now, you can play as CM Punk. Now, speaking of the Elite, we have an update on their reception this past week at AEW Dynamite, and it's quite interesting, actually. Now, of course, this week, the Elite defeated Death Triangle in the Best of 7 series match, in the third match of the Best of 7 series, changing the score to 2-1. And the win on the behalf of the Elite received a pretty lackluster response from the audience in attendance, according to notes from PW Insider. Fans watching in person gave a, quote, very muted reaction to the teams as they entered the arena. And it didn't change up throughout the match. The Elite got a mix of cheers and boos at time, with people seeming apathetic towards the trio, while Death Triangle was left to no reaction. Specifically, the conclusion, where several false finishes and big moves occurred before a surprise roll-up pin, was said to have left the crowd very flat. Now, again, that's all about perception. I thought on TV it came across okay. I did think when the finish happened it came across flat, but I thought that was because they didn't really see what happened, and the finish looked to be not botched, but I don't think it was clear that Matt Jackson got the knees up to the broken nose of Pac. It did feel like a flat finish, definitely you could tell by that. But as far as the reactions, I mean, you let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, a story that has been getting a bit of praise recently, but it's not been on Rampage really, and definitely not Dynamite until this week, was Matt Hardy and Ethan Page. Obviously, there are plenty of stories that happen on AEW Dark and Dark Elevation on YouTube. And on Thursday afternoon, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select provided some additional information on the storyline between the firm's Ethan Page and Matt Hardy that's gone on for the past month or so. It kicked off on Rampage back in October when Page defeated Private Party's Isaiah Cassidy, forcing Cassidy, Hardy, and Cassidy's partner Mark Quinn to join the firm. Since then, Page has made life miserable for the trio, fining Hardy and barring him from using the Twist of Fate, though Hardy and Private Party have continued to win. Sources have told Fightful that the feud is largely the brainchild of Hardy and Page themselves, as the two were reportedly excited about working together when it first came together. Acclaim for the storyline, not that acclaim the actual word, in and out of the company seemed to pick up, however, after a backstage segment between Hardy and Page, which also featured Private Party, aired on this week's edition of Dark. Fightful noted the segment was pulled off in just one take, and the storyline has been seen within AEW, according to Fightful, as a way to carry stories over to AEW's shoulder content from the TV shows. This perhaps explains why the storyline bled over onto Dynamite Wednesday night, when Hardy interrupted a promo by Page and the firm leader, Stokely Hathaway, prior to a match between Ricky Starks and Ari Daivari. To be honest with this storyline, I can't say that, I watch Dark and Dark Elevation every week because there's only so many hours in the day, frankly, but if they can get a storyline that's relatively hot on that show, that tells people to watch it, they need to do it for Rampage, let alone Dark and Dark Elevation. That's what they really need to do, to be honest with you. But if it's getting acclaim and they're enjoying doing their thing, then good for them. We have some title matches announced for Ring of Honor Final Battle. Of course, that's a pay-per-view event that's going to be taking place later this month. And Daniel Garcia, of course, has been the Ring of Honor Pure Champion for 85 days and will break the 100-day mark if he's able to defend his title successfully at Ring of Honor Final Battle. It was announced on Wednesday on Dynamite that Garcia would be putting his title on the line against Wheeler Yuta. This will be the third time that Yuta and Garcia have gone toe-to-toe this year with the Ring of Honor Pure Championship on the line. The first was at Death Before Dishonor in July. Yuta retained the title on that night. However, his luck would not be the same in their second match. On September 7th, Garcia defeated Yuta for the Ring of Honor Pure Championship in their second match in Garcia's hometown of Buffalo, New York. Their match at Final Battle will be the rubber match. However, considering they are two of AEW/Ring of Honor's youngest stars, there's a very good chance they will eventually meet once again for the title in the future. Speaking of title matches for Final Battle, Mercedes Martinez, she has a title match that has been announced for Final Battle as well, and it will be against Athena. It's been officially announced by All Elite Wrestling on Thursday evening that Mercedes Martinez will put her Ring of Honor Women's title on the line against Athena at Final Battle on December 10 in Arlington, Texas. That, of course, is next weekend. This will be the first time Martinez will be defending her title since July's Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view, where she defeated Serena Deeb to retain it. Of course, Mercedes Martinez was on the shelf for a long period of time, but now she's back. Finally, Kenny Omega is going to be facing Will Ospreay at Wrestle Kingdom, and as you would expect, he had to get permission and blessing from AEW President Tony Khan as well. Now, before the Brawl Out happened, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks found themselves in a contentious feud with Will Ospreay and the Aussie Open. Then the latter went away, the former was taken off of television, so the story was kind of left open-ended and people weren't really sure where it was going to go. However, it was revealed in November that Ospreay would be facing Omega at Wrestle Kingdom 17, and according to Dave Meltzer in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, this all came under the blessing of Tony Khan, who had given his stamp of approval ever since Omega and Ospreay started the back and forth on Twitter, which was months ago, months ago, even before Kenny Omega even came back to AEW television the first time. A match at Wrestle Kingdom was the plan all along, Meltzer reports, even with a lot of the meat behind the story playing out on Dynamite and AEW Rampage. As I mentioned, this has been going on for months, and basically it's another sign to say that sometimes when you see stuff on social media, sometimes it's a work, sometimes it's a shoot. In this case, it was all a work. So there you go, guys. It's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.